Hello, I'm the Dark Master, and welcome back to my video game reviews. In today's video, we shall be continuing our coverage of the Kirby series. This time, we shall be reviewing Kirby's Blowout Blast, or as it's called in Japan, Kabi's Great Suction Offensive, or Kirby's Inhale Operation, depending on how you translate it. This was the 17th spin-off game in the Kirby series, and the 33rd game overall. This is the last of the Kirby spin-offs introduced via the 3DS Eshop. Is this a high note to end on, or does it deserve to be dumped into the dustbin of obscurity/mediocrity due to not getting a physical release? Well, let us find out, starting with that developmental history, and see if there's anything to be learned from that. Okay, so for full transparency, I have to say there is very little, if anything, we know about this game's developmental history. It started as a sub-game from Kirby Planet Robobot, which I've reviewed before, so check that out if you'd like to learn more about the game that I'm talking about right now for more information. But Shinya Kumazaki, Masayoshi Tamanimura, Takushami Kimishima, and Shiya Takahashi thought that there was merit to this game and that it could be its own title, which, to be fair, of the 4 sub-games we've discussed, that is probably the most accurate, at least the most you could possibly do with that, but we'll return to that in the gameplay segment of this video. Other notable people who worked on this include Hirokazu Ando, the lead sound guy, Miko Ohomoto as Kirby's voice, Jun Ishikawa, another sound worker, as was Jun Ishikara. Even looking into the files, there's very little that was removed that's worth talking about, like some unused areas and a copyability git animation, which ended up being unused since this game has no copyability, so, nothing really notable. In the end, development seemingly went smoothly and was released in Japan and South Korea first on July 4th, 2017, then in North America, Europe, and Australia on July 6th, 2017. It ended up selling poorly, however, not even selling 1 million copies, being quite under that mark. It only got middling reviews, who regularly said it was repetitive. Was that deserved? Well, let us find out, starting with the review proper with this game's quote-unquote story. Or at least that's what I would say, you fool, if this game actually had a story, for there's not one to be found here. To be honest, it doesn't really need one, but still, the complete lack of one is notable enough to note. But, let's not waste your time any further and go on to something that arguably is the most important aspect of any game, the gameplay, and see how that is handled. Alright, so on a basic level, the gameplay is largely unchanged from the Kirby 3D Rumble, a sub-game from Kirby's Planet Robobot, which I've reviewed before that I mentioned earlier, so check that out for a basic explanation of the controls. But in essence, Kirby has gone 3D, and the controls, luckily enough, are smooth as butter, and would serve as the basis for Kirby and the Forgotten Land many, many years later. Unfortunately, unlike that game, you have no copy abilities, which is a bit of a shame, but you can suck quite easily here. From there, it plays into the main gimmick of the game, which is lining up your shot and spitting out a blast that will kill a line of enemies, leading to a combo and thus more points. This bullet is sparkly and larger if you inhale multiple objects/enemies. And while bloated, unlike in the original sub-game, you actually break star blocks, which doesn't really have much of a purpose, but that's kind of neat. Speaking of objects, there are star blocks, which you can inhale to hit enemies with, food, which you can heal, it's maximum tears and such, but you won't really need it if you're decent at the game, and you really want to avoid taking any hits whatsoever, so it's basically pointless. And most important are score coins that come in 3 variants. Copper coins give 100 points, silver coins give 500, and gold ones give 3,000 points. There are also several bonus challenges that each give 3,000 points that have you do some stuff, like taking no damage, finishing in a certain time limit, beating all the enemies to death, or getting all the coins. Careful though, as getting hit costs you 100 points, which is again one of the reasons why food is pointless, as if you get hit you just want to restart the level anyway. But what is the deal with these points? Well, if you get enough of them, you are rewarded with a trophy, either copper, silver, gold, or platinum, depending on how many points you get in that level. Speaking of levels, while the original only had 3 levels/worlds with a total of 9 stages, this one is much larger with 5 regular worlds/levels with 23 stages, 5 EX stages/levels/worlds with 23 stages, and a secret bonus path that combines aspects of past stages for the ultimate challenge. So yeah, you got a total of around 51 or so levels. More bang for your buck, you could say. I will say, though, in order to unlock the EX stages as well as the final, secret level, you have to basically get gold on all past stages. Though, really, you want to aim for platinum for reasons we'll get to much later in this video. One last thing with the gameplay that this game has that I think is worth talking about is how this game has some amiibo support. By using the Kirby series Kirby amiibo, you get a statue of Kirby in the plaza, which is basically the sort of small hub world of the game. I didn't mention it earlier as it's not that big of a deal, and you play an arrangement of The Adventure Begins theme. Waddle Dee's amiibo adds 4 Waddle Dee statues and plays an arrangement of Floral Fields theme from Kirby's Triple Deluxe, which I've reviewed before if you'd like to learn more. King Dedede's amiibo adds a deity statue and plays an arrangement of King Dedede's theme, obviously from the original Kirby's Dream Land, which I've reviewed before. Lastly is Meta Knight, and gets you a Meta Knight statue, 2 of them in fact, and the theme Boarding the Halberd from Kirby Superstar, which I've reviewed before, which is, a nice little bonus, but nothing required. Overall, this game is really solid gameplay, and it's just a lot of fun. A solid evolution of the sub-game from Planet Robobot. A lot of people say it's repetitive, which I find funny, as I think it's the least repetitive of all the 3DS Eshop spin-off games. Now let us discuss the presentation, starting with the most obvious half, the game's graphics, and see how those are. Alright, so the graphics are heavily based off the style established in Kirby's Return to Dreamland, so watch my review of that if you'd like to get more information. I think it's good though. Level 1/World 1 is greens coded, level 2 has a more tropical beach vibe due to yellow floors and palm trees. World 3 has a castle aesthetic and a nice orange floor color. Level 4 is hard to describe, but the markings on the side, as well as yellow, are vaguely esoteric and has some good color. Level 5 is even more castle coded than the last level I discussed that was castle coded and has a lot of really ornate architecture. Level 1 EX has bluegrass, which is a nice musical reference and a very distinctive aesthetic. Level 2 EX is purple. Fair enough. Level 3 EX is a nice metallic color that really contrasts with the more bright colors of the other EX stages. Level 4 EX is night themed, I guess would be the best way to describe it. Level 5 EX is a bright neon purple-ish color, and the secret path is just a combination of the past EX stages areas in various ways, so not really a lot to talk about there. The point coins are a bit more squarish than in previous games. That doesn't really affect much, but I felt it was worth noting. Overall, the graphics are solid, if not particularly groundbreaking, and I don't really have much to say about them. Now let's go into the second half of the presentation, the music, and see how that is handled in this game. Alright, so much like the graphics, the vast majority of the music in this game is reused. There is the title screen music, which is a good remix of the Kirby's Adventure title theme, which is a game I reviewed before if you'd like to learn more. The Art Attack theme from Kirby 64 The Crystal Shards also shows up in the game file screen, which is an interesting choice. Flight of the Azure, a theme from Planet Robobot, can show up if you have Street Pass data from that game. You even get a little statue of Susie, which has no gameplay role and isn't really all that graphically impressive, as though I didn't mention it up until this point. Level 1 has you hear a very nice remix of Green Greens. Then there is, level 2, you get a remix of Castle Lololo. Castle 2 EX, you hear a nice remix of the Float Islands theme. Level 4 has an arrangement of the Bubbly Clouds theme. The Secret Path gets a very genuinely intense remix of A New Wind for Tomorrow that highlights how tough this specific stage is. You also hear the mid-boss theme, Kirby's Adventure, with some nice electric guitar during ambushes and against Masher. The original Dreamlands boss theme also shows up while fighting Lololo and Alala, Kracko Jr. and Kracko himself, which sounds great. King Deity's theme also gets a nice high-key tone remix. While fighting Giant Mask Deity, we come to the sole new track in the game, and I don't know, it's okay. Far from the best Masked Deity theme and arguably one of the weakest final boss themes in the series. Overall, the OST in this game is serviceable but far from memorable. Now let us go on to the enemies you shall face as the player on this 3D adventure. Alright, so in terms of the common enemies, all of which do not give abilities, as there are no cop abilities in this game, they are all returning, such as Waddle Dee, who also has a purple variant that shows up in EX stages, and a Sectonia D variant. Spear Waddle Dee chucks spears, but is otherwise just as pathetic and comes in a Sectonian and darker purple variant. Key D also shows up. Bronto Burt also shows up, but now in a Sectonia variant, as well as a brand new dark purple variant that only shows up in the EX stages. There's also Squishy the Squid, Shotzo the Cannon, Soror, Scarfy, Gruff the Boar, Mumby, Kaboo, Grizzo the Bear, Gordo, Glunk the Anemone, Cappy, Chip, Broom Hatter, Bouncy, and Baboot the Bat. Going a step up is the Mini Bee Smasher, who functions like he did in the original subgame and has a blue-colored weaker variant and a red stronger variant that has a shield. They all function like they did in the original subgame, so I don't really want to spend too much time on them as to cut back on repetition, but I think they're all pretty fun encounters. I just wish he would show up in a mainline game for once. But he's been demoted from a full boss to a mid-boss, which means that there are full bosses, and yes, there are. Speaking of those, this game has quite the number. World 1 has you fight Low all alone, who, pushes blocks at the player and occasionally will kick them at Kirby. He also occasionally will push Gordos instead. He gives 5,000 points upon defeat, and it's honestly kind of a pushover. The perfect example of a starter boss. The EX form of this fight, called Low's Revenge, turns purple, and he moves faster as well as just push more Gordos more regularly and will start kicking boxes earlier. He will also start kicking red boxes. Maybe they're made out of ruby or some other reddish gem, who knows, that leave fire trails, and when defeated he gives 600 points. Next up in World 2, there is Kracko Jr., who will float around and charge at the player as well as shoot him with lightning. His second phase has him shoot a spinning wave beam attack. He gives 8,000 points. His EX form, titled Kracko Jr.'s Revenge, is purple colored and has a new cat-shaped iris. Now faster, his beam attack hits more often with more waves, and he gives 10,000 points. Next up is Low and La, which is similar to the fight against Low, but with La as well, so you got double the trouble and double the blocks. Still pretty easy, but it gives 10,000 points overall. In Low and Lala's EX form, titled Low and Lala's Revenge, she has taken an orange coloration and now can both toss fire-spreading ruby boxes, and gives 12,000 points. Kracko is back. In addition to all the attacks that Kracko Jr. had, he now has several more, including one where he fires a volley of beam blasts. He gives 10,000 points. His EX form, Kracko's Revenge, is faster and does multiple attacks in succession and gives 12,000 points. The final boss is against DDD himself. I've discussed in detail in my Every DDD Fights Ranked Christmas special made about 3 years ago, so to avoid repetition, what I can say is that it is the highlight of the game. The first phase has him be small, and he just sort of functions like you'd expect a DDD fight to function in 3D. His second phase has him become gigantic, which is honestly pretty intimidating, even if his design is a little silly. And of course, before you ask, he does have an EX version called DDD's Revenge! Honestly, though, I have to say the fight against Masked DDD in the secret path was genuinely kind of a challenge, and honestly, just really cool. It's a shame that the theme that accompanies it is so bad, because it's honestly a pretty fun encounter. Overall, the enemies of this game are a nice addition to the sub-game and give way more variety than was originally there. And all the bosses are just neat to encounter, even if they're not all the hardest. Now let's go into the completion requirements and my final thoughts on the game. Alright, so once again for the game's completion requirements, it's fairly simple. By getting a platinum trophy in each stage, you will unlock the secret path. Beat that with enough to get a platinum trophy, and you will be rewarded by completion screen. Yeah, that's it. There really isn't technically a 100% completion, score. It doesn't really keep track of that, but I think in this case, it's something that you want to do, if only to get the most out of your buck. Because, I mean, if you just get the bare minimum, it's about like an hour and a half tops, but getting platinum on everything can easily take you about 6 hours or so. Sadly, here we got another instance of where, due to it only being released on 3DS's eShop, which is no longer available because Nintendo has no concern for, like, the future, it was shut down, and thus you could no longer really buy it. And from what I can tell, it can be fairly hard to emulate 3DS eShop games. But I think that this is one worth trying to find, as it's a lot of fun, and I can recommend it for Kirby fans and general video game fans, because it really is a solid experience. It's just a darn shame they took it away. Overall, this is unquestionably the best of the 3DS eShop Kirby spin-off games, and I must heavily recommend it, even if it's a bit hard to find now. Anyway, I'm the Dark Master, and if you liked the video, but if you loved it, consider sharing it around and subscribing. It really helps the channel out. Take care and have a wonderful day.